Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Hey, can you hear me? Okay. Awesome. Thanks. Glad to. So, welcome to the conference, to the second day of the conference, and welcome to the Decouple Drupal using Gatsby crash course. Oh, really? Loud keyword? Yeah, it's a mechanical one. I can show you the link. It's an awesome one. Will be great to have a few things. Whenever there is a Q&A section, so if you want to ask something, just go to the Q&A tab on the little icon on your right side, and I will ask you first. Hey, Carlson, doing? I will ask you first. How many of you have experience with Gatsby? I mean, just could maybe just type using like new to Gatsby, been using for a while, or anything else. But yeah, let's before this jumping into and welcome for the on session. So my name is Jesus Manuel Olivas. Been a long time Drupal user. Me and also jumping into the Gatsby boat and Jamstack for probably like 4 years ago when Jamstack were starting. So I've been using Gatsby since probably when 1 to 2.0 version. I came today with my Pantheon hat. I'm doing some consulting work with Pantheon, helping them shipping the Decouple perk offer. I'm also the CEO of Kidrate, so you can find me on whatever social network places as JMOLIVAS. Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad to see people it's using both. So yeah, and during this session, what I wanted to touch is more about, this is a starting point. So I would like to ask you to go to this place if you want to follow up what I'm doing. Clone this repo, and as you can see, the README has a instruction here what to do. So I'm just going to keep adding more and more instructions. The other steps, I'm just going to one by one at a time. And first step will be like cloning this one. The repo is already somehow pre-configured here, and I will show you what it is, what's included. The whole idea of this workshop is to guide you through the process of implementing this Drupal, of writing this Drupal Gatsby implementation. If you take a look at the repo, what you will be able to see, it's the pre-match. It's a pretty basic repo. If we take a look at the source directory, we'll see there is a component directory where we have all of the components we're going to use. But so far, what it's really related to Gatsby and creating pages is on those route files. So for this particular example, we will be taking advantage of the file routing system API instead of the create pages for creating those pages. So we have this here. So we have this node article path alias and node page path alias, which is related to the naming convention that Gatsby require you to create those. So long story short, take those collections from the Gatsby data layer and create those pages automatically, like automagically for you. So you don't have to worry about creating those pages right on the using the create page API. There's a question, will a recording of this workshop will be available later? I don't have an answer. I can try to figure it out. Okay, let me go back to the original thing. Okay, so first, whoever wanna follow this example, please git clone this repo. It's right here, already shared on the comments. Git clone it, just put it on the local machine and clone. Again, it's already pre-configured with the Drupal site that is running on Pantheon, as you can see on the Gatsby config. So you don't have to worry about like any EMB values or anything at all. The site is already allowing anonymous traffic, so we can pull data from it. So again, I'm just trying to make things simple and easy for you to run this. So answering this, like the goal is to post all of the videos tomorrow. So yeah, so answering that question, sounds like it will be. Okay, let's go back. So please let me know if some of you clone this one. Please do that to follow along. While you clone it, that, and my goal is to break the little exercises or steps into 15-minute blocks. That will be the goal. Let's have this block of this allocating time for running the example, making sure everything is working fine. Again, follow along, and we'll see how far we can get. I think that we have like 6 or 7 steps. We have the goal of having a break around like 10-ish or something. But again, long story short, the repo is already pre-configured, so you don't have to do anything like EMB or anything else. The only thing you need to do is git clone, run your either jar or npm. Okay, so I'm gonna share the link again on the comments. Now you don't have a previous experience with Drupal, it won't be a problem. Before jumping into the example, what I'm going to do right now is to show you the how this Drupal site looks like. It's a pretty standard Drupal site, I could say. I have to change my display settings, and it's kind of hard to work with this resolution, but I'm really taking advantage of a Drupal site it's pretty standard. Again, as I mentioned, I'm just taking advantage of the 2 default content type, article and page, with slight modifications. As you can see here, if I go to article, the changes done in this, it's adding a new field called field component, which is a field that can accept paragraphs. Paragraph is a type of file in Drupal that allow you to create these compound files. So long story short, you add a field, but this field is fieldable. Paragraphs is a module with a lot of usage on the Drupal community. There's some other options like field bundle storage, but I'm just going to use paragraph because that's probably what the de facto module that Drupal people used to do. Then I have this field final image, adding this field rendering mode for the purpose of the example, and tags. Nothing fancy here. And related to the page content type, it's 2 fields, extra fields added. The field components, again, same thing. It's the this field that can accept paragraphs, so we can see, we can show, turn on, off which paragraph types we want to use within this Drupal site, and this Boolean field for showing or not the title. Again, this is for the purpose of the example. Taking a look at the paragraph types, it's like this. It's a pretty basic one, like blog teaser, code block, here's CTA, here are text, and image, and text. And some of the modules used here. I'm just going to take advantage of the Gatsby source Drupal plugin. So we are using JSON API for the purpose of this example. And JSON API menu items also was added to be able to pull menus from Drupal. It's a contrib module. There's an API some core and some other API extras, image styles, whatever. A few here things here and there. And if you are familiar with Drupal and you think how this Drupal site looks like this, because this is not how Drupal looks like most of the time, and this is because I'm using a team called Gene. I will share you a link. I will also update the README on the repo to add the proper configuration. I could probably also export that all the Drupal site configuration so you can run this on Pantheon for you, so you can try this on your later on your local machine. But let's So log in. Long story short, the Drupal site, it's pretty standard Drupal configuration. Just added paragraph and this paragraph field for managing components. The goal is to create this set or turn this set of paragraphs into React components. And that will be the goal for this. I don't know if you have any questions, because right away I'm going to start jumping into the second step for this example. Any questions? I'm just going to update the README so you can follow along with the example. So now you refresh the repo, you will see that the second step. So the second section, it will break into A and B, two little, and this is where we're going to start replacing the site. Again, so let me go back to my terminal, spin up my Gatsby site, yarn develop. I already clone it and do whatever I need to do. It's coming. I'm just going to change that. You can use, instead of going click, just try this, click HTTPS. I'm going to update the README file right now for you. So instead of doing this, go get on. This probably is that what it's probably, or give it a try to instead to this one. Maybe that works. Yarn taking a while. Yeah, sorry, Carlson, but yeah, you are downloading the whole internet because you don't know modules. Okay, let me know when. So we have 1 minute for starting the second exercise. I'm just gonna time that. And I run it on my local machine, and if I go to my site, this is how, after running Gatsby develop, this is how this should look like in your computer. Something like this. As you can see here, what has been happening, it's the pages are created, some pages like home, blog, and about us. Where are those pages coming from? Those pages are being pulled from the Drupal site, and the Drupal site is, every time that I switch display issues, but yeah, we can go to content area and we have a couple of pages. So we have home, we have about us, we have blog, and we have 404 page. And those are the pages we have here. And as you can see, we have a 404 page, what it means if I go 404 here, that page, I can handle the content of this page from the Drupal site instead of having a index file. So what I'm trying to show you here, as you can see on pages, all of the pages will be managed by Drupal. All of the content will be managed by the CMS. The goal of this exercise is to show you how to fully take advantage of the CMS, provide you structured content, and use that content to render your Gatsby site. So again, this is how this look like on your machine. So let me know if that works. I'm just gonna turn my timer on. and start with the exercise. Yeah, it's running. So first step, looking at my example, I mean exercise. Next step, we're going to render some of the fields. So instead of having the JSON serialized object that is coming from Drupal, of the data that is coming from JSON API, what I wanted to do, it's to replace that with, turn that content into React components. So following the example, what we're going to see, we need to open the notepad alias JSON file. So go to source pages and go to the node page file, which is right here. Means go here, and this is the file. And what we are going to replace is this section that it's just doing the stringify data. So going back to the sample, so we are going to remove this and replace with content. So what we need to do for this step is to first import the React component we are going to use to render that data. In this part, for this example, we have this field title, or this title and body components are located on components, then field, and then title. I follow this directory structure just to make easier for Drupal people, because they are just kind of like Drupal teaming happens. You don't have to follow this. You can implement your own, but long story short, just make it easier for Drupal people to translate the knowledge that I already have. So I'm just going to copy this, just going back to my import section, just paste it here. As you can see, those are not being used. That's fine. And next step, I'm just gonna take those right here. Just going to replace this area, paste it, make sure it's aligned. And after doing this, what it should happen, it's the content coming on my Gatsby side, it should look different. I'm just gonna replace, maybe it's not, maybe it's broken because I changed things or something, or I didn't save. No, you know what? I'm using node article and not node page. That's what it's not working. So I'm just going to this file like this and open the right file. Node page. This is the right file. So what I'm going to do, again, import my components on the right file. We're gonna save this other one. And then replace the stringify version for the files, the right content, hit save. Now it's saved, going back to Gatsby, and yeah, it's working. So what is happening is the data coming from Drupal, it's now been turned into React components. And how this is happening, so Gatsby has something called page queries, and what has been happening while using the routing system, as we can see here, we're telling Gatsby, Gatsby use this node type or content type called node page, and then use this field path alias. What is happening here, as you can see the double underscore here, it means it's using something like path and then alias. So this is what has been happening. That's why, and this is called node page. This is a node. That's why we have node page, then dot, then the field name. But since we are using a nested field, we need to specify this under those double underscores. So that's what is happening. So now that is happening. Again, by using the routing file system API, Gatsby, what Gatsby do is just pull the data from the data layer and create all those pages for you. And then just pass the ID on that page. So whenever you are creating on this template file, what you can do here is just get the ID that is being passing you via the context, and using that one, then you query the data layer. So what I'm telling here is, run this node page query where the ID is equal to the ID value that I'm getting from the page creation, and just pulling those fields for me. I'm just pulling field. I don't know what. Yeah, let's add those questions on the Q&A area, and we can get those. Yep. And yeah, we get this. We get the field. So as you can see here, we got field title and field body process, and we get the process because we want to get the HTML that is already processed by Drupal. And we're just taking those values and turning into React components like this. And we got this. And as we can see here, we have a broken image. And why we have a broken image? We are consuming the already processed HTML that is coming from Drupal. If we go back to Drupal site, we will see my homepage. Has this WYSIWYG area where I can see home, heading, and I already set text, a broken image, because I knew this image will be broken once it gets to Gatsby. But we'll fix that right away. Worry not. Go back to the Gatsby site, and let's jump into the second part of the example, which what we're going to do, it's a little fix here. Think about this. We have this title, but it's showing in every single page, like home and about us. It makes sense for the title to show in about us and not blog, but maybe it doesn't make a lot of sense to showing this in home. So what we are going to do, it's to use this field show title that we add on the Drupal site to decide when to show or not that field. So I'm just going to add the following step. And if you refresh the page, the read file, you'll see what's happening. What's going to happen next? I just need to add the field on the query, on the GraphQL query. So this is the field that is going to tell us, this is a Boolean field on Drupal. It's going to tell us if show or not that title. So I'm just going to go back to query. I'm just going to add this field here. So it means now the field has been pulled from the data layer. That field already exists on the data layer because of the process I run when I run Gatsby build, all the data from Drupal. It's not what's added on the data layer. What I'm doing here is just telling whenever you run this page query, get that field for me. And we're going to do is replace this, how we use the component. So instead of like by default adding the component, we're going to add this if this is true, then add it. So copy this from here, go in back to the tile area, just replace here, make sure it's indented correctly, hit save, go back. And as you can see, blog show the title, about us show the title, but home is not showing the title. And this is because if we go to the, its show title is off here. So it means it's really taking advantage of the data that is coming from Drupal for taking in order to take the decision to showing or not the title. So again, we're really fully taking advantage of data coming from Drupal to decide what to show or not on the Gatsby site. Why if, yeah, I'm looking at the question. So one question is, I will be covering a schema in Gatsby. No, we are not covering a schema in total, but I have part of the example, it's to customize the schema and add in a couple of fields. So we will be able to have an overview of this, Tanya. And there's another question by Alan, why is there a question mark in body? Right here, what I'm doing here, I'm just asking if this body exists, then continue. If it's not, continue. I'm just like playing safe here, trying to avoid there is no data, because blog, that field, the body field doesn't, it's null on blog page. That's why it's like that, because we don't have any data. And if we try to use the property, we'll get something like undefined property from whatever, or an error on that JavaScript code. Yeah, and yeah, that's unfortunately the TypeScript announcement. It was barely yesterday, but now it's TypeScript supported on Gatsby now. Then it will be great to use that. But yeah, let's go back to the exercise. So again, now we're pulling content. We saw how to add a new field, and we use that field to take a decision about rendering or not the title based on the content that is coming from the CMS. So far we are here. we have the Gatsby site running, but unfortunately, we have a broken image. And I'll show you why we have a broken image. If we go and inspect here, what we're going to see, again, we are using the process field, the body process field, which is Drupal. That is coming from Drupal. It means that HTML can be processed from Drupal. And as we can see, this is how Drupal tell and give us the image on the after processing the HTML. How can we fix this broken image? We can probably go to Drupal, change the filtering of the text editor and make a change to return a full path. But let's fix that on the Gatsby site instead. But again, it's broken, but because it's trying to use an image path as it is coming from Drupal. And unfortunately, this image is, Gatsby have no idea what this image is about. Okay, so I'm just gonna close this one and we have a couple. Sorry, I will add the third step on the README file. I think we have a couple of minutes for questions. Yeah, exactly. So Daniel's answering why we're using the question mark. I think it's called, yeah, optional chaining operator. That's all it is. It's basically, again, validating the property exists in order to get the value from it. So just adding the third step. So what I'm going to do right now, it's instead of having this broken image, what we're going to do right now, it's to turn that into a full path image from Drupal. And this, we're going to see this GraphQL customization right away to getting that value and turn into real images. And the code is already there on the helper section. We're not going to go too deep into that. And go back to the README file. I'm just going to update the README file, adding the next step. So if you go back to the README file and refresh, you will see the 3A it's here. And this is what will be the next exercise to serve the image from Drupal CMS. So what we're going to do here is replace the relative path for the full path coming from Drupal. Going back to the here, let me know if you can see the third exercise so we can take a look. Long story short, we're going to still keep working on the same node page file. What we are going to do is add a new field, but as you can see here, this field, it's within a field called fields. It's kind of funny, no? The field that is contained on a field that is called fields. And this field, it's been created by GraphQL customization that we'll see. And this field is going to contain the full path image instead of the original relative path image. And the exercise is very simple. So I'm just going to do this right away so we can see the image not properly rendering and not a broken image like we have. And then I will spend some couple of minutes explaining how this was achieved. So going back to my README file, what I need to do is copy this from here. And going back to my query on the node page, not the node article, go back here and adding this new field, add the field here, and properly, and save, going to get back to my Drupal site, my Gatsby site, it's not showing. And then what I'm going to do is replace the prop that I'm passing to my body component. So instead of passing node body process, I'm going to pass the new field that I just added, which is called fields and body process with inline images. So I'm gonna get this and remove this one. Yeah, question, is it better to serve images from a site like? Yeah, obviously it's way better. Actually, you can see one of the announcement of Gatsby was Gatsby Cloud Services like CDN images. Yeah, you can do that, serving images from a place that that is their purpose. It's better. Yeah, and then what I'm going to do again, I'm just gonna add it right here and see what we've seen changing. Again, I'm still using the same body component, but instead of passing the body process, I'm just gonna keep both so we can see what's happening. So go back to my Gatsby site, refresh, and as you can see, this image is still broken. It's still broken because I'm rendering both, but now this is working. Let me go back and remove the one we don't want to. Hit save, and now the site it's rendering the image properly. And if I right-click here and open the image and the path, we will see this image is being served by the Drupal site on Pantheon. We can see we are replacing the original relative path for a full path, and this happens on this graphical customization. Yeah, glad to hear that chain, like image CDN support is coming to Drupal module. And we'll see, let's take a look at this. First, let's take a look at what the body component is doing. It's a pretty simple one. It's long story short, it's just taking the content that is coming and use already, again, as I mentioned, it's HTML because it's already pre-processed by Drupal. So we're using the dangerously set inner HTML. And just passing that HTML here, and that's it. So it means the content, whatever coming from Drupal, it's already set here. So going back to my template file or my route file, we will see. Remember, we add this body process inline. Let's see what is this? Where is this field coming from? And in order to see that, we need to take a look at the Gatsby node file. Again, I don't want to bother you with all of the details, but long story short, what is happening here, it's implemented using the onCreate API. It means whenever a node gets created, we are going to attach into that lifecycle event of the API and do something. And the something that we're going to do is to process the body field content that is coming from Drupal and replace that path, relative path for a full path image. What are we doing here? Again, we are using the onCreate node. We are defining this content types. It means we only want this process to be happening when any of those content types are the ones for the one creating pages. Let's say only if node page or node article it's created, then do this. So this is the validation. So if this array includes that node internal type, it means the node internal type that Gatsby is currently creating or processing, then go and start doing what I'm wanting to do. If not, let's not worry about it. So what we are doing here, it's this. As you can see, there is a function that is coming from the helper. This function, it's just telling me that if there is inline images within that. So again, it's processing the HTML. It's extracting if there's any images, and if there's images in there, it's returning into this array of objects. And you can see here, I mean, again, I don't want to bother you with all the details, but you can go here and take a look at what is happening. It's happening in receiving the node. If there is no content, you automatically return the body content in an empty array. If it's not empty, it means if there is some images somehow, because I'm using this, if body is not empty, then start processing this. Again, extracting EMG elements, then running an array of that. And in the end, what has been happening, it's created and returning an array. And the array, it just contains a full path. This full path is being created using the original Drupal site. Again, I'm just setting this value right here, exactly the same as I'm doing on the Gatsby config file to avoid configuring any EMB or having issues for this particular example. But you should not do this. You should have this on an EMB file, making sure the EMB file is loading and it's available during the node process. But again, for the simplicity of this example, I'm just like hard coding this here. It shouldn't be here. So again, what I'm doing here is just, if there is an image and instructing the source and just prepending the Drupal site and returning an array of key values with the relative path and remote path. And then what has been happening, if there is no images, it means there is no embedded images, relative images on that, then I just return the body content. And going back here, if there is inline images, then I start iterating those and getting those remote images. But guess what? Since Gatsby already download those images during their build process, it's not downloading again the image again. It's just returning that image from the previously caching data layer. So it's returning me the file node object, and I'm just doing this. In this particular first iteration, we are not using this file node, but we will use on the next one. Because this first example, this first hack around that I'm showing you, it's just by replacing the path, the relative path for the remote path. But then the next iteration, we are really fully taking advantage of Gatsby image. So again, this is happening, and again, create another array. Don't worry about this. This is what really matters for us. I'm using this variable to set, body process with inline images is equals to the original content, but replacing that relative path for the remote path. And this is the place where that replacement is happening. And then finally, I'm using the create node field helper to create a new field. And the field is called body process with inline images. Again, so I'm just running create node. I'm creating and passing the node object where this new field will be created. I'm just passing the name and the value. Again, what is the value? What the value contains? The value contains the full HTML process from Drupal, but I am replacing the original image path with the full path. And this is what we have here. Again, image is showing, but it's not a Gatsby image. It's a image pointing to CMS, but it's fully functional. At least we don't have a broken image. Let's jump into the next exercise. What we are going to do is to serve the image directly using a Gatsby image component instead of this replacement, relative and remote path. Any questions? Just going to update the README file so you can see the next step coming. Now you go to README, you will see 3B serve images as Gatsby images. Okay, asking on the Q&A, got it. So Carlson is asking, did you have to create the helper yourself, or that is from some library or blog? No, I had to create it myself, but you don't have to because it's already there on the code base and the Git on the Git repo that you already cloned. What is the best practice to use Drupal multilingual feature? Yeah, so yeah, that's out of the scope of this session. We can discuss that at the end. Can you show us how the site is connecting with Gatsby? Okay. And the site is connecting to Gatsby because we're using the Gatsby source Drupal plugin. So long story short, as I mentioned at the early beginning, we are using the Gatsby source Drupal plugin and the Gatsby source Drupal menu. Same thing as I enable on Drupal, the JSON API module and the JSON API module menu links. By enabling those and enabling these plugins here, that's all I need to do in order to have this Gatsby site connecting to the Drupal site. Again, Gatsby allow you to do like easy, like out of the box, no worries to get connected to a CMS, as simple as using their plugins, their ecosystem of plugins to connect. In this particular case for Drupal, is the Gatsby source Drupal. And by using Gatsby source Drupal, on your Drupal side, you have to use JSON API. So there is no Gatsby source Drupal for GraphQL. You have to use JSON API, but it's coming from Drupal out of the box in core, so you don't have to worry about just enable your Drupal module, coming to Gatsby and just do this here. And again, I just set the base URL here directly, again, to avoid having this env variables, anything, so no worries. So this is why I can run queries, and also this is why I can get those menus running on my page. Oh, can you explain this? I don't know what you mean, Carlson, with this and the curly brackets naming convention. Did you mean this on React? Convention for something like showing content here? Okay, let's go back to the example. So again, going back to the original example, let's finish serving the images from Gatsby and go back to questions. So now, in order to get those images on Gatsby, what we're going to do, the same way, we're adding this body process with inline field. Okay, got it. I get you, Carlson. That once it gets this example. Once you get this serving the images. So the same way, the getting fields from here and adding this, but I'm just going to use this other new field that I created. But this inline image field, it will contain the field object. It will contain not only the path to the remote image. Sure, I will share the recording of the session. Someone mentioned around Friday will be available. Yeah, I'll make sure I'll tweet that about and also share. The same, as we can see, remember the body process with images, with inline images, is only HTML already. We will replace the local image with the remote image. This inline images field contains set of fields where we have the original image, which is the relative path, and also it contains the field object or field node. So then we can use that one. From there, we can use that to render a Gatsby image instead of that. So I'm just going to copy this field from here, going back to my query. I'm just going to replace the whole thing because we already have the body processes already there. So I'm just adding those new fields. So this is the new field we are adding, this inline images. And this is coming from here. So I'm just using the same create node field, helper or API. I'm adding on this node object, I'm just adding this inline image field. And this image field contains the original image path and the file node ID. Yeah, this is the reason for the warning you're getting. So instead of this the customization should be probably a little more complicated, having to do some GraphQL customization and linking to the file probably. We have some other example. We have done that okay. So let me go back. And in order to do this, we are going to use this other component. So let's import this body inline images component. Going back to my page, and I'm just going to replace this body with this other component. And finally, just replace with this. I will no longer going to use the same body component. I'm just going to use this body inline images component. We will go back to my Gatsby site. We'll see if I go right click this image, you will see this image is coming now from Gatsby. It's no longer coming as a remote image as in the previous example. As you can see here, now it's coming from Gatsby. How is this happening? It's happening because of two things. First, again, the Gatsby node customization that get add this field here, this node object here, but it's taking advantage within this body inline images component. You will see. So this component is receiving two things. Content. I'm getting back to the original content, the body process content. That the one that contains the relative path. It means I am no longer using the one that was replacing with the full path as in this on the previous example. But this is no longer happening. What is happening now, I'm using the original HTML, but I'm also passing these inline images. This array contains what? Contains the relative path of the image and also the file node object. It means the node object that is Gatsby recognized as a file where we can, since this file is an image, then we can do all this Gatsby magic. So let's take a look at the component. And what the component is doing, it's taking advantage of this other helper that also had to grow. And this helper is receiving both content and inline images. And as you can see here, this is parsing the image right here. Again, I don't want to bother you with all this, but what is happening is just transversing the elements on the HTML, and it's telling you, is this a tag? This tag is an image? Yes, it's an image. Then follow, continue, and if there's an image, and this image attribute source, it equals to the original path that I contain on my set on the array. And then if it is, then it means this is an inline image, and it's just replacing that image tag with the Gatsby image component. And since I already have the local file object that I pass to this field, this custom field, I can take advantage of child image chart and Gatsby image data, and this is why this has been happening. So again, what was needed for this? Do this GraphQL customization to take from those relative paths the file object from the data layer. I just set that object on a custom field, and then have this parsing process that we will replacing from that the original HTML, the image tag with the Gatsby image component. And it's probably very, very complex. And guess what? I have a better solution on the upcoming example. Let's move to questions. So I've done ask if I write a custom transformer, I found I needed to add Gatsby source Drupal to the transformer plugin. So the onCreate hits, then Gatsby main project, complaints about not having the package JSON. I'm not aware of this question. It's a nice question to have. We can probably discuss that. If you have an example of this, will be great to take a look at the code, see what is been happening, why it's asking you to add, but then telling you it's not there. So it means your plugin on your site, it requires the Gatsby source Drupal dependency. Probably that's what has been happening. And then Ravindra, it's how Drupal session values get handled in Gatsby. What do you mean with this? How you can log into Drupal and show like restricted content? If that is your question, then you need to enable a auth mechanism in Drupal to allow you to log in remotely, and from there you will be able to use this JWT or JavaScript Web Token to connect to the Drupal site and have this authenticated session where you can, based on that user that it's been logged in with the credential that you pass with that token, through your token, you will be able to authenticate as a certain user with a certain role and permission and pull content from that Drupal site. How should we handle search? Another question. Well, there's way too many ways to handle search. You can either have a view that is connected to Solar and expose that via JSON API, or you can send your Drupal data to something like Algolia, and you do the search by doing that. I have seen things like people indexing things on Elasticsearch, and then use that endpoint to query data. It will depend. It will depend. But you can still use views and expose that view via JSON API and do those queries client side. And again, you can make that's the view search using like search, default search, or Solar, or just move to something specialized for that as either Elasticsearch or Algolia or something. And well, again, let's have a probably 5-minute break if that's fine. Again, what we have achieved so far, we get the site was already connected to Drupal. My Gatsby site was already connected to Drupal via the Gatsby source plugin, and we were able to replace the stringify version of the node with real components like this one. We will also be we're able to get and decide when to show or hide the title using another field as a Boolean value, where this should be shown or not. And then we're able to fix the broken image doing 2 different approaches. The first approach, it was just by serving the image directly from Drupal, just by replacing the original path from the full path, image path on Drupal. And the other one was serving the image as using taking advantage of the Gatsby image component, which means what we end up doing is customizing the GraphQL by adding a new field, and in that field what we end up adding is a reference with the original field and the field object that was already pre-downloaded and pre-processed by Gatsby, and then having this body inline image component that was transversing the whole HTML and just replacing the image tag with the Gatsby image tag component. So again, it's pretty much like, take this image tag element, remove from here, and just going to use this Gatsby image component instead. So, you can use this. So again, once get here and just do the transformation, just remove the image tag and use this Gatsby image tag, because I know this gave me a Gatsby image, and this is how we end up with something like this. And from there, we can add any effects or anything supported by Gatsby image. Can config entities in a Drupal custom module be exposed to JSON API for Gatsby to see Gatsby GraphQL? I'm not aware of this one. I know you can do this with GraphQL module, but it means you won't be able to use the Gatsby source Drupal. It's that question. It's something we can probably add. Maybe there's a module for that, or something you can customize your Drupal endpoint to expose the config entities. My question will be, what will be the reason for exposing this content config entity? Which data you're planning to expose from Drupal so Gatsby can consume? And what are you trying? Which problem are you trying to solve? So again, let's take a 5-minute break and let's get back to 10. Just going to turn off my mic and camera and grab a coffee and back. Feel free to keep asking questions on the Q&A or adding comments on the live chat. Yep, I'm back. Let's wait a couple of minutes for in order to continue. Let's recap again before continuing. For what we got. We got the first, we have a Gatsby site that is already pre-connected to Drupal by using the Gatsby source Drupal plugin and JSON API. We also had this Gatsby source Drupal menu links in order to pull menus, and we can see the menu here that is coming from Drupal. So all of the content that is being shown on the page, except this text that could also be implemented, it's coming from Drupal. Then we are using a field to decide when to show or hide the title, because not every single page you need to show the title, but we don't have to hack around like, if this is the route or not. So what we are doing here, we are taking advantage of Drupal and all the fields and the content modeling and data. Drupal can provide us with the data structure. We are providing this show title field where we can use to show or hide. And finally, we got this way to fix those broken images that are coming on a WYSIWYG field. But I think if we can follow that path, adding content on the WYSIWYG, which is in this case will be CK editor. But this thing is not going to take us too far until we hit another problem. What if we want to have a more advanced customization? Think about this. This is only the image. So we get the image that is coming from Drupal. We fix that it's no longer broken by replacing that image with the Gatsby image component, which is this React component. But what if I already have this design system full of React components? Think about this. I have this code blog, or I have this code snippet, or any other set of components. And if we keep adding data on this WYSIWYG field, we won't be able to expose that data as structured content. And if Drupal is really, really great of doing this piece about providing a structured content. So instead of adding more and more data that it's being served as HTML from Drupal, what we can do here is instead take full advantage of the data modeling in Drupal and use that. So the next exercise we're going to see is I want to show you is how to render data that is coming from paragraphs like this, those paragraphs that are created here. Again, a paragraph, it's a type of content, a piece of content that is embeddable on a content type. You can see or you can think about as a field that can contain fields. So it means this field code block has some fields like code, language, show lines, or title. We have this other content type called here CTA that contains some fields like CTA, intro, text, title, or this other here text. Again, it's a fieldable field or a fieldable piece of content that we can embed on our content type. So what's going to happen within our page content type, we have this field components that can contain paragraph types or paragraphs. So it means this field can contain multiple field types. So what's going to happen right now, we're going to remove the body field from the equation and just replace by different content. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to add the rest of the steps now instead of adding one by one. Just make this easier on the README file, and we can keep adding more things there. Just going to go to the README file, paste, steps. We go back to the README file, we'll see the other steps are here. So let's go to step 4 and replace the body field with paragraphs. And we're going to do we're going to totally remove the body field and use this field components field that contains paragraphs. And we are going to iterate those paragraphs, extract the data, and map that data to React components. Think about this as a pre-processing data on Drupal. So we're gonna take that array of objects, which is this field component is returning an array of data. We're gonna turn that into an array of React components and have those replaced on my Gatsby side. So first step, let's add this relationship query. So I'm gonna copy this and add this relationship field. This should be added to my, again, node page, because we're going on the same one. Let's add this right here. Right here, as you can see, this relationships field, and it's named like that because this is how Gatsby introspect the data that it's coming from the JSON API and just add it to the register on the node. So JSON API expose a flat element, and all the nested objects are not there, are only as reference on this relationship field. And what Gatsby do is follow those links and start pulling data from you. The data layer, the Gatsby source Drupal module takes care of that, introspecting the JSON API, follow the links, and fill those objects for you. So again, we end up with, on the Gatsby layer, with our relationship field that contains a field component. And finally, get this. And what you see here is what is this that naming thing means? This here is, instead of having the query inside this field, we are using something called fragments, and those fragments are already wrote and added to your Gatsby site. So think about this. What is this paragraph here, CTA? If we go to fragments and search for it, we will see there is a previously created paragraph that is already doing this. So this is pretty much what it's doing here. I'm just creating this, registering this fragment. I'm telling you, whenever there is a fragment or there is a piece of content that is paragraph here, CTA, I'm gonna give it this name and making sure it's pulling all those fields for me. And then I can use the name that I just gave this in order to use that, instead of having right here within this field component, something like on this paragraph type, gave me those fields. On this other paragraph type, gave me all these other fields. Because you will end up with a query that is just huge and will be hard to read. So instead of doing all that query here, we just move those to this fragment area. And that allows us to reuse those queries. So let's go back to the example. So again, you don't have to worry about creating those fragments because those are already created. So we have a fragment for the hero, for the text, for the image, and go back to the exercise. So now we are going to import those two libraries that are already also added on the project. So node page. We no longer need this one, so I'm just gonna move it away. Just gonna import this. This mapping paragraph components, to React component, it's really helpful. And the whole, again, what we're trying to achieve here is to really take advantage of a structured content that is coming from Drupal, because that's what Drupal is great for, to creating this data structure, this data modeling. So I'm going to add this function here. I'm just going to register a constant, and this constant is going to call this component resolver helper that we just imported here. We will spend a few minutes reading what is that about. And we are passing this new field that we just added to the query, field components within relationships. Remember? Field components within relationships. So we are passing the array of elements to this component resolver. And this component resolver is going to use something, which is the field type, to define this is this paragraph type. Then I'm going to use this React component in order to serve content. And finally, we're going to replace this body inline images using these components, this array of components. So we're going to remove this one and have this here, indented so you can read properly. What has been happening here, no longer needed. What has been happening here, my component resolver helper function is returning an array of React components, and I have this code If this contains something, then just apply a map and turn into and render those components on my React page. But what is this component resolver? This component resolver is pretty simple. It's just a function that just receive this data that it's coming, this array of data that is coming from Drupal, and just start iterating that and putting into this component, an array of components. And take a look at this. It's using this resolve function. And what is happening here? Simple. It's just telling me, is this a paragraph hero CTA? Then return a paragraph hero CTA React component. Again, it's turning structured data that is coming from Drupal CMS into React components. And those React components are imported here. If you, and those are pre-imported here. And then again, if there, again, let's think about this now. Remember the type that was already there. If type it's image, then instead return the paragraph image React component. If paragraph is text, then instead return the paragraph text. And you can do whatever you want to do here. Again, think about if you're coming from Drupal and you know theming, think about pre-processing the data that is coming from Drupal, and use this is the place where you turn structured data into React components. And then if I go back to my Drupal site, we will see the homepage has this components section where I added this paragraph. So we are no longer going to use the body field. We're going to use this component. So I added this component field that can contain paragraphs. So those paragraphs are here. And remember how those paragraphs are fieldable fields? Well, this is the field they have. They have the intro, they have title, they have a text, they have some URLs. The other paragraph, it has a different shape of it's a different type. This one it's hero CTA, but the other one is text and has a different set of fields. This is a title and rich text. This contain WYSIWYG. And then this other paragraph is only an image. And the final one, it's another text paragraph. Again, we're going to take this data modeling where we're doing in Drupal, exposing through JSON API. Then what at the moment we consume this within Drupal, instead of showing all that, how it's coming, we are parsing that into React component. And again, this is where the fragment query creation came to the game. We need to make sure we create those queries. We add it on our page query, and then we get that data, array of data, and use this component resolver to turn into React components. Again, depending on the type of the paragraph that it's coming from the data layer, it's telling me, is this teaser? Use this one. It's a hero CTA? Use this one. I am deciding which React component to render. And let me go back to my site, gonna refresh, and yeah, it's coming. So again, what has been happening here, I detect that I no longer need this CSS here because every component is already styled. So let's remove that and go here. Yeah, Aaron, you are probably misunderstanding. We are really taking advantage of paragraphs and that content modeling that is being exposed from Drupal, but we are taking advantage of that type definition of each one of those components to turn into React components. And if you want to take a look at this, within the components directory, there is a paragraph directory that contains each one of those components, code block, hero CTA. So what has been happening, again, remember the component resolver. The component resolver is, this is a hero CTA, then return me a paragraph hero CTA. And what has been happening here, I'm passing all the data already as props. And as you can see here, ideally, that component should not, it doesn't have to need to know anything about Gatsby. So I'm just passing the whole Gatsby data object as it is, that is coming from Drupal. So again, that component shouldn't be aware of Drupal and data definition. It's just receiving props. And those props contain the data that the component needs in order to render what they need to render. And it's right here, And if I need to change something,
then I should go to that particular React component and change whatever I need to change. And remember, this is the hero CTA. Then we have the text. Then we have the image. And this image out of the box is a Gatsby image, because we don't have to do all the magic about, about replacing whatever, because we are already receiving an image. So the paragraph image already knows how to extract the Gatsby image data from the data layer and pass through the image component. So we don't have to worry about guessing what's inside this WYSIWYG. Is an image, it's a code snippet, it's whatever. How does it perform with nested paragraphs? Yeah, for nested, actually, you know what? I'm glad you asked, Stu. And this component resolver is already can resolve those nested paragraphs, because as you can see, I'm calling this resolver, and this resolver is it's iterating and resolving and calling this resolve. So it's kind of like recursive function. So you can have this nested paragraphs defined here, and this process is going to return those nested paragraphs as well. But again, whenever we think about paragraph, we like to think, or at least, I mean, I do, and whenever we do, I like to think about as stackable components instead of layout. So think about this as full stackable component, and just containing the whole set. And if your component need to have some like layout shifting, like image on the right, image on the left, you can have an image field within this component, and you have a field, a field to something like move image right, or image right, image left. You can do that based using this structured data that is coming from Drupal. Another thing you can do probably is just add another field on your paragraph that it's called variant, or how you want to name something like full image in the background, whatever, and use that data and pass the data from Drupal to your React component, and your React component can probably take the decision about where to print that image, either on the background or the bottom, on the left or the right. Think about more as an structured data, and how to turn that into a React component than layout. Let's go to questions. I believe you can also make WYSIWYG widget for CK editor to output. Yes, you can do that. You can do that. You can do that. And I think CK editor 5, the latest version, it's for React components, and those components came into as blocks. But again, you probably won't be able to have the this rigid data structure and allow this and that, or having some certain field within Drupal. By using paragraphs, you can have those fields like require. You can do a lot of things that are already out of the form. The data entry is through a form using the paragraph UI. And if you want to have a better experience while adding paragraphs on your site, you can probably use layout paragraph module that allow you to have this drag and drop thing where you can have this like a better user experience. But there will be some other issues that we'll find out there, like while using a better UI for drag and drop, you will find out like your React component is not rendered inside Drupal, and you can get into a lot of other issues. You solve something and then another thing show up, but there's ways to solve that. And Carlson, feel free to ping me. You know where to find me, and I can show you some of those things. Okay, let's go back to the next piece of the exercise. Now we finalize getting the homepage about us, but think about now, if we go to blog, we can see something. Remember, in the past, we don't have anything, and this is because blog, whenever blog happens, there is on my resolver, component resolver, I have this. Whenever the component is called block teaser, I'm just calling this block teaser, and this one contains a static query that is just returning a list of blog posts. So again, even where this blog is shown is also managed by Drupal, because I have on my Drupal site, if we go to blog page, we'll see blog page, edit, we'll see something. This component is using a block teaser component. So again, it's a paragraph that it's only used for telling Gatsby where to render that static component. And instead of going something like hacking around and having a blog.js file that is going to define the route, you can manage through the Drupal. Yeah, Stu, you need to ping me, Stu, and I can show you some of the work we have done related to how to improve the content editorial experience. I can probably show a few things at the end. Out of the scope of this exercise, but yeah, Gutenberg is great. We have done some examples with Gutenberg, also with WordPress, and it's pretty nice. So let's go to the next example. So go here. If I click on this thing, guess what? Now we have the same thing. Let's go back to the README file and quickly replace whatever we need to replace. So I'm just going to open that note article route file and add this cover component. Now let's fix this route path. And let's add this query on my page. So I'm just gonna move a little faster from here. So what I'm doing here, I'm adding on my page query a field called created, another field for the relationships. What I'm getting from the relationships here is the author. It's called UID in Drupal because Drupal. And then I'm getting the file image. So I'm going to use that for rendering something on my page. Then go back to the example. I'm just going to create this author object where we can pass the name and picture. I'm just gonna pre-process that data. Again, think about us pre-processing here. I'm just going to turn the data that it's coming from Drupal on the data, on that register on the Gatsby data layer, that it's a little overcomplicated. Like, no, that relationship is that field author, that field name. So instead of that, I'm just going to give it a name. And the picture, I'm just going to return the image object and call picture. Just make my life easier with writing those components. And then I'm just going to add this one. Let's not add this one for now. Just add this one. And just going to replace this. I'm just going to add this component. I'm going to hit save and go back. And yes, now the cover is showing. The cover is showing me the image, the author, an avatar of the author, an image, and the date, and also a picture. But how about content? Okay, what we can probably do here is the same exercise, like, yeah, what if I use the body content from here, I could probably do this. But I need to import the body first. So let's go to my node page. It's not here. Let's import. Add some fields, and then it's called body. Let's call this body. Save. And yeah, it's here. But we are in the same situation. We are using the WYSIWYG to expose data, and we are not going to get too far. So again, let's take full advantage of Gatsby and to turn or map data into components, and Drupal to expose structured data. So now let's add a new block code component. First, I need to register that on my fragments. Let's go to the fragments, and I'm just going to add this query. So this query, fragment query, what it's doing is registering a new fragment on paragraph code block. That data, it's already on Drupal. If we go to that particular block that is called Gatsby source plugin, go to edit and go to components, the data is already here. It's having a text paragraph and a code block paragraph with a title, code, language, whatever, but it's not being shown because we don't have that piece of content. So let's go to our example and let's remove the body. We don't need it. We don't want to get into the same issue with WYSIWYG data. We want to take advantage of structured content. So it's here. Now let's go back to my README file. And let's first add the fragment. Let's go to the fragment files, source, helper fragments, and add it here. So this is it. I don't have to do anything else other than export a constant with the GraphQL query containing a fragment in order to register that fragment on Gatsby. And I now need to add my fields into my query page. So let's go to article. Let's now add this field component. I think, no, it's here. Should be added on the same relationship. I'm adding the field component field, which I know it contains paragraph text in code block. I'm just reusing the fragments that I can reuse in any other query page. So I'm adding this here. I'm just adding the fragments, and probably in my Gatsby site is broken because I added the fragments on my query page before the fragments, but worry not. We'll fix that. And now let's import what I need to import on my page. Go to the article page and import the right things, the ID, the component resolver. I need to have a helper, making sure the component resolver is resolving, adding to the components, and finally returning the components on inside my article tag. I'll no longer need this thing because all of the classes will be defined on those components. And let's reload, and guess what? This is my component. Remember, we have this component, this text thing, but my code block is not showing, and it's not showing because I added what? I add the fragment, I add the query, but I have not yet updated the component resolver. So I need to update my component resolver in order for this to resolve. So now let's go back to my component resolver file, copy this, importing this one, right? So I'm importing the new paragraph code block, but this is not exist. Am I right? So, oh, it exists. Yeah, and I think it's right here. It's code block. So I'm importing this one here, and finally adding to my component resolver. Let's add it at the very end to be clear. Same situation. If this is a paragraph code block type, then return this React component. So let's save this one, save this other one, go back to my Gatsby page, and boom, it shows up again. So taking a full advantage of Drupal providing data structure, taking advantage of data modeling in Drupal, and getting that value using this component resolver in order to resolve or map the structured data that is coming from Drupal into React component that Gatsby is going to show on my page. So this is how you register a new paragraph type on a component resolver. Okay, let's go to questions. Carlson asking about layout builder. Yes, layout builder. I have some links at the end. Layout. There's a way on layout builder to export the configuration, so you can take that layout data and render that on your front end, decouple front end. I think until at least 2 weeks ago, when was the last time that I checked for that, there was a patch that you need to apply to layout builder, and there is a module. I think it's this one. This is the module. JSON API include layout builder. I think, Carlton, you're already reading my README file. So if you apply a patch, this patch here, on your Drupal site and use this module, then you will be able to see this configuration data that you will be able to use to define layouts and blocks and where things are. So you can take advantage of Layout Builder. But at some point, you will end up in the same situation, like what you are seeing on the Layout Builder, what you are dragging, dropping, it's returned by the Drupal template system, and you are not seeing those React components. So it's kind of interesting thing that we need to resolve now in the Drupal world. Kind of like allows you to drag and drop those React components, right? And Paul is asking, do you have experience using a setup like this with content editors in large teams, how to handle things like draft previews? Yeah, you can have draft previews. You can make sure you can configure that and expose that on your Gatsby site. Again, out of the scope, but we can excuse that. Okay, so getting back to the thing, what we had now we are no longer using the WYSIWYG field, CK editor. There's nothing bad with that. It's only that return in a chunk of HTML that we might need to transverse in order to replace or turn that HTML content into React component. But instead of that, we're really taking full advantage of the data content modeling power of Drupal to expose a structured content and then use this component resolver mapping to turn those paragraphs into data. But doesn't have to be paragraphs. You can use blocks. You can use, again, storage module. You can use the file bundle module. You can use whatever data structure that you want to use. You need to make sure that it's exposed to the JSON API, and you implement the right component resolver code. Jay, is there a way to see how the Drupal site is set up? I'll make sure I'll create a repo for the Drupal site, so I can and I'll link that into the README file, so you can also have a copy of the Drupal site in order to run this through that site instead of the original site that I got deployed in Pantheon. Okay, so just for the final piece of the example, there is something called deferred static generation in Gatsby that allows you to, instead of running those pages on build time, you can run those pages on demand. So what we're going to do next is to add this little code on my node article page and having a little validation about any page that is tagged as DSG on the field rendering mode within Drupal. It's going to turn to the DSG rendering option. So how is that happening? If we go back to our Drupal site, we will find out, we will see there is this rendering mode field that is telling me I want to render this as static, as defer. In this particular case, we're only using SSG and DSG, but you can do, I want to use this as DSG or not. Let's go back to content, and I think this is the one we want to use as DSG, and it's set as DSG. So what you can see here is this is already set as DSG. Now let's go back to my code. I'm just going to copy this one. I'm just going to paste this one within my node article file, node article. So I'm just going to add this here at the very end. I'm just going to stop my Gatsby from running. Just going to run it again. And you won't probably see this. I mean, this should work, but in the end, it's like, I'll explain you how this works. But again, what is going to happen with this piece of code is we're telling Gatsby, instead of creating this static page, this page is during build time, just create the static page only once it's requested by someone, when someone navigates to that particular route. And in order to do that, we should implement this config function and make sure we return for a page if the defer is value as true But again, we are going to use data that is coming from Drupal to decide if that page should be or not defer. What's going to happen? This config function can execute a query, kind of like, like a static query. And we're going to set, just give me from all of the articles in my Drupal site, just filtering for those that has this field rendering mode equal to DSG. It means any page or node article that is tagged or set with this value, it's going to show up here. And then I'm just going to use that for deferring or not. What's going to happen here? And what I'm using the path alias. As you can see, node path alias field. And I'm going to compare that with path alias that is being returned on this config function. I'm just prepending the slash because this is how it's coming from Drupal, and just to match the right route. So if I go back to Drupal, sorry, to Gatsby, and go to blog, and go to all, this one was deferred, but it's like, you cannot see this is deferred or not. Let's confirm that by running a Gatsby build. So instead of, let's run build. But it's going to happen once the build process gets completed. It's going to show me a list of all of the pages that end up being created by the process, and we will see if any of those pages is tagged as deferred by adding a little indicator. I think it's a D, the letter D or something. We'll see. It's coming. Chrome is eating all of my memory. Every time that I'm just sharing my screen or doing a stream or something, computer gets slow. Okay, you can see. Can you see here? Those related to this route node article, all of the pages that end up being created are this one, and this other one. And as you can see here, this one has a D. It means it's deferred. So it means that page will be created on the fly when someone visits this URL. And if you put some attention here, you will see this route. It's a little different than the others. It's not including the slash. There is a known issue that already reported to the Gatsby project, and it's been not resolved yet, but it's what I've been told last time. They're just like, figuring out what is happening. That's why I end up removing from the path alias generation the forward slash, but that shouldn't be a problem once this get resolved. And the question is when we should use DSG. Think about this. Let me go back to the DSG definition. Right here, we are DSG based on a property. So let's say I know this page, it's like probably not receiving a lot of visits, so I don't want this page to be created during the build process and statically in the build process. But how about what, and this is explained here. And any other filters could be implemented. As an example, by creation date. Think about this, all the blog posts that are older than last year or, 2 years ago. Or we can probably implement something more advanced. We can probably, make sure our Drupal site is exposing some data about that, or we can probably connect this data layer of Gatsby with our analytic data and mesh that data, and we can find on that set of data who contains who visit that page or not. How the ranking of that page in related to visits, and we can decide, only render the first 100 of couple of 100 pages or whatever number of pages we want to that have this certain amount of traffic or page views, or any page that doesn't receive it's been visited probably since last year. Let's not render that. So we can be as creative as we want to because we have access to the Gatsby data layer. So we can decide when to use DSG or not. Awesome, Jane. Yeah, it's a just sharing a blog about how to do analytics in that. That would be great. Again, this is the beauty of Gatsby. It's this data layer that you can mesh, this content mesh thing that can pull data from all the different sources, and you can use the right data on the right place to take the decision that you want to. Do you want to render this? Do you want to render this other thing? You want to avoid this from happening to improve your build time or whatever. Again, you have all the data available and you can connect any different external system, not only your CMS. And yep, exactly. DSG is the way to keep build time short. Yeah, because you are not building those pages. Again, DSG, you just fetch all the data. It's just don't construct the data. Just don't construct those pages during build time. But since you have access to the data layer, so you can take those decisions. You know, if this post again is older than a year, or it doesn't have this number of previews or whatever. But that's correct. The first, yeah, the graph, yeah, the GraphQL, yeah, exactly. The page. Once someone visits the page, then the page is created. Okay, let's go back to the Readify. And I think it's pretty much what I do have for the exercise and example. And things to consider. As you can see here on my field components, I'm calling 4 fragments, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the node page, but on the node article, I'm just calling 2 fragments. And this is because I know those fragments exist on the Drupal side. Something funny, I don't know if there's a solution for this yet, but if there is no data on a particular field that get exposed by JSON API, then Gatsby doesn't register that data on the data layer. You can do things like maybe creating a node that it's probably unpublished or something that contains all the data in every single field. That's one. Another workaround is to do a GraphQL customization and add those paragraphs on the field. But if I add a paragraph here that doesn't exist on the data layer, it's gonna break. Even if this field in Drupal can or have this paragraph assigned, if there is no data on the Drupal exposed by the JSON API, then Gatsby is not going to find that and it's not going to register this on this field type union. So that's a little, again, you can work around that, either providing nodes with data. In order to do that, you can probably use YAML content module, or what you can probably do, it's which is more advanced, have code on this graphical customization to register those paragraphs on that type, regardless if they have or not data. So whenever you add data on those fields, you can use them within your Gatsby pages. When does it hurt to use DSG? It's not like hurting, but the first visitor of that page will have to, I don't know what would be the right delay for building that. But again, I don't know, maybe that, but I don't see a place where DSG can hurt you. I mean, you are not going to DSG all of your pages, but again, if you use the right data, either like creation date for all blogs or like page views to more visited pages, you can take a smart decision. And exactly, it's the first visitor. Again, that's what I was trying to explain. The first visitor is the one who will be creating or making sure the page is created. So that it's the trade-off you have to accept while using DSG. A couple of modules you need to be aware. Again, During this workshop, I only talk about the integration piece, but I didn't talk about how to build or deploy. There is a module called Gatsby that you need to make sure you add in order to, like, listening on changes. This is build hooks, or Gatsby. I don't know if the Gatsby APIs. It was a module for creating like different like endpoints. There is another module that I just discovered recently because JSON API node preview tab that to like add this preview tab so you can see the shape of the object that you're going to get exposed with that one. Yeah, Gatsby, the module Gatsby for supporting Gatsby previews. It's great. The DSG does make, yeah, and layout paragraphs. As I was mentioned, if you want to provide a better editorial experience, you can probably introduce layout paragraph that allow you to drag and drop paragraphs, kind of like layout builder doing things, but for paragraphs. Again, if you want to use layout builder, make sure you take a look at this layout builder include module as well, and the patch that has been mentioned here, which is this one. I cannot think at this very moment any other. There's plenty of modules, right, that you can probably use. But again, Gatsby, or the Gatsby module for previews, the build hooks for listening to changes and triggering builds. And again, in order to use layout builder, take a look at JSON API include LV. And if you want to keep using paragraph, maybe you want to take a look at layout paragraphs module. Take a look at the questions. So no, I think there's no more questions on the Q&A area. Any other questions? I think we have a couple of minutes before stopping the stream. Any comments? Did you learn anything? You find anything interesting in this approach? All these steps are already on the README file, so you don't have to worry. You can follow up this at home. And again, the final example of this, what we end up doing is to really fully take advantage of structured data that is coming from Drupal. And again, let me show you how this menu works, because we didn't mention this. Okay, a couple of questions. Would it make sense to move all these helper apps to a transformer plugin? It could be. Yeah, it could be a good option, kind of create a plugin, maybe add it to the plugin. Actually, I wrote a plugin long time ago to in a Drupal module that instead of exposing data as HTML, it provides this editor where you can, similar to CK editor, but instead of returning HTML, it was returning Markdown, and then add this transformer plugin to turn that Markdown into React components or HTML, which works really great. That's another approach. But yeah, definitely moving that to a plugin, it will make sense. That will allow you to reuse that, or at least for an external package that you can reuse in different projects. Is there a way to trigger a build from Drupal at certain time? Yes, there is a module for that. It's called build hooks. Take a look at this module, build hooks. And this module, and yeah, I created this module, but I haven't maintained it in a long time. Someone else is doing it, but allows you to deploy to different providers. And it's like a webhook where you can configure. It's either, this is the list of providers you can use, and you can build the thing. And it's also allowed you to either by clicking something on your menu or just by an event happening. I am not sure if the Gatsby preview module, it also helps you to do that, like triggering builds. I haven't seen it in a while. But yeah, there is a module for that. That's the answer for about, there's a module for triggering build. Yeah, the Gatsby module also allows you to configure how previews are builds are triggered. Awesome, thank you, Shane. And that. I'm glad to hear that. So Gatsby preview also can help you to trigger builds. Again, all of the resources that got mentioned here are here. I'm just gonna make sure I add some other resources here related to the meaning of why is this, curly brackets on my routing. So I'm gonna add a link to the file routing system API. I'm gonna add a couple of links to how to customize GraphQL. That was what we just did on the Gatsby node. I'm gonna make sure I'll add some of those links right here on the README file, so you can follow along and also click those links to the official documentation and have a better understanding of how what's happening. Unfortunately, because of the length of the 2-hour workshop, it was not enough time to do like more in depth of each one of those topics. I just want to make sure I can cover some of the most basic things like configuring, customizing the GraphQL, rendering images, using components, that kind of thing. How can we create form in Gatsby and send data to Drupal? Well, you can either create a form. I think there is a JSON API web form module that allows you an endpoint. So you can create this in a form and just post the data and enable an endpoint in Drupal, either with web form or contact or any of the other subsystems or modules in Drupal, where you can catch the data, get the data as a payload, and just post it back to Drupal. At this point, might be using web form, it's too much for what you are going to do. Maybe you can do something else, like just an endpoint that receives data and just do that, process that data and just send it back to Drupal somehow, or use an external system, a different system on a platform service that you can receive that payload and turn into data. However, but again, there is JSON. Let me see if I can find it. It's called JSON API or something. JSON API web form. Web form JSON API. I think this one. There's another one, Gatsby web form backend. So I think the answer for most of the Drupal question is there is a module for that. You can also iframe web form. Yeah, you can do that. Maybe the thing is theming. It probably won't be the same as you want to, but that will work definitely. Well, I think I'm just going to stop the stream at this very moment when we have 5 minutes. Feel free to ping me. You can find me. Let me show you my. You can find me. Drupal.org with the same. Can stop the streaming right now. Any other questions before we finalize this? Oh, my pleasure, Carlson. Again, any questions, you make sure you can feel free to ping me either Twitter or on the Drupal Slack channel or the Gatsby Discord channel. And again, I think I can, I no longer showing my screen. I think so. I think I can show something. Yeah. Let's stop this.